Hello, good evening, everyone. It's a little after 7. We have a modest quorum tonight, so we'd like to get going. First, we'll start by taking the roll. Just say whether you're here or present. Mr. Delisle?
Here.
Mr. Eigerman?
Here.
And Mr. Hardy?
Here.
And I'm here. So we have 4, which is a minimum board. And that's what we have tonight. We also have with us planning and report, our planner, Katie Sullivan, and our Gretchen Joanne. So we have 5 hearings scheduled for tonight, but with a short board, we have requests to be continued. So we'll start with that. And the first one being 9 Bromfield Street, which has been continued 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times already. It really can't proceed because we would need Greg or Larry, or preferably both, to be here, and neither are here. So I understand, I don't believe anybody's here tonight representing 9 Bromfield. So Caitlin has input from them, and they would like to move out to the 14th, given that they've been in process for a very long time. The 14th. But we need a motion. Would somebody like to make a motion to move this one?
I'll move to 9 Bromfield Street to the meeting of April 14th. Yeah.
All right, so we moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Wow.
Yes.
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 And I vote yes. So it's 4 in the affirmative. That one's pushed out. And we have 2 others who've also asked to move to the 14th, but we already now have 5. So I don't care if you had a chance to communicate with the applicant in this case that.
We did have a brief phone call today, and I did mention that the 14th looks quite.
Right, so it's, yes. So this needs to be moved to April 28th.
Which one is this?
These are, well, we'll take them one at a time. The next one is 180 High Street, one with a swimming pool in the front. We'll start with that one. So I don't know if the applicant, would you like to say anything about it?
I spoke to Caitlin earlier. She indicated that the 14th was, so now you just put something. So we understand.
So do we have a motion to continue this until the April 28th? Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Mr. Delisle?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And I vote yes, so that's 4. And the last one is the one at 20 Pine Street, which I believe is also yours.
Yes, so yeah, the 28th as well.
We get a motion to move 20 Pine Street to 28th. So moved by Mr. Eigerman, seconded by Mr. Delisle. All in favor, let's see, Mr. Delisle?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's 4 in the affirmative. All right. So now we're down to the 3 at hand. And realizing that we have a short board, and they need to be unanimous to pass. The first one is 14 Highland Avenue, which was continued from March 10th. And Mary Dean, you're here to represent.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Meadby, telling Costa 30 Green Street Newburyport. With me this evening is Scott Brown, the architect on the project, and Patrick Natius, who is the builder on the project. And you can go to the next slide. At our last meeting, let me just give you a brief reminder. This is renovations to a pre-existing non-conforming structure. The Historic Commission has determined that it's not properly preserved. This is an upward extension of the non-conforming front yard setback, removing the rear 2-story addition, which I call like the caboose on this house, and then building a 3/4 story on top. It's adding less than 500 square feet to the structure, and there's no change in the footprint, but for an added deck in the back. And we also presented the board with 5 letters of support from all the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide. These are the nonconformities. The only nonconformity is that front yard setback that's going to be impacted, and that's by the upward extension. Next slide. And just as a reminder, here's a house in the neighborhood, the White House, at the existing conditions. So your next slide. And that's on the, that's a little bit closer, on the downhill side. Next slide. And that's front view across on Highland. Next, please. And this is the opposite side, on the hospital side of the property. Next slide, please. And then that's on the same side of the street, looking down the streetscape. Next slide. And as I said, again, I think that everybody realized that everything's pretty compact here. And at the last meeting, it seemed like we were pretty much on the way to an approval, but for some changes on some windows. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Scott just to talk about the changes in the windows.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Lisa. So our proposed site plan, we haven't made any changes to this site plan. Can we go to the next slide? So we have, since the last meeting, we've made a number of minor yet impactful revisions to the house. Some of those changes have been based upon comments from this board. So in the next, 4 slides, the elevations on the bottom are as were presented on that meeting on March 10th. And the elevations on the top are new proposed elevations with those changes. So this is the front elevation of the house. Really nothing has changed here other than a couple of minor details that we added naturally in the next level of development of this project. And, for instance, we had added, just from a drawing standpoint, added downspouts in the elevation on the top. A glimpse of a window bay on the right side elevation, which you'll see that we've added in the next slide. Next slide, please. So this is a right side elevation. We talked about a number of things at this meeting and proposed elevation on top. Most notably, you'll see this sort of window bay that we've added, which I really think makes kind of a huge difference for this side elevation. And this is something that we had already started to add to the drawings before that ZBA hearing on the 10th. So that's a major change to this elevation. We've also added a window in the upper left-hand corner of that dormer. So that dormer now has sort of a symmetrical configuration with windows on either side. So that's a major improvement. And in the lower left-hand corner, like we talked about, we've added sort of 2 4-light awning windows, which flank what will be a gas fireplace on that wall. A much sort of perhaps more subtle change is that we have removed the egress windows in the basement. This is not something that we necessarily talked about, but this sort of extension of this hearing kind of gave us some time to think about what we're doing in the basement. We decided that that was really no longer necessary and, was a bit problematic with how low the grades are, how close the driveway is to this side of this house. So we've eliminated that and we added back in a basement utility window. It's always been there, but the lower elevation somehow magically disappeared from our original drawing. So we've added that back in. And, in the back right corner, our proposed deck, again, something not talked about, but something that we've since added to the project. We showed kind of an open deck, the deck entirely open underneath, not something I necessarily like to see. So we've added a bunch of skirting there to kind of match what we're doing. Next slide, please. So rear elevation, really the only thing that's changed here is the addition of that skirting underneath that. And as a reminder, that back deck is being expanded from its current existing footprint. Next slide, please. So left side elevation, as you would see the house from the opposite side, a number of window tweaks here. We've added a window on the first floor in the back left corner. Increased the size of a window in sort of the center of the plan. Also aligned that with a window on the second floor. So some very minor changes, but I think it's an improvement we saw on the 10th. And again, on the back left corner, we're also showing that stripping underneath. Next slide, please. So a rendering showing from the front left corner, a lot of those changes that, we've made on the left side are really sort of imperceptible from this view. And a really reminder, like this is an accurate rendering. The only thing here that is not entirely accurate is the relationship of what we're proposing to the abutting structure. The abutting structure is shown much closer to this house than it actually is. Next slide, please. This is a revised rendering from the front right corner, so you can see what the addition of that window bay does to the side elevation. Really is a major improvement in my opinion. And again, those two sort of 4 light awning windows on either side. So all in all, I think some of these changes are minor, but I think that they add up to being sort of a major improvement to the project. And with that, I'll hand it back to Attorney Mead. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And Andy, you can just do that here. I think that just as a reminder, there are no new nonconformities for your first criteria. And the second criteria is that whether or not the project is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing, where the board may take into consideration the size, scale, massing, and volume and location. Those are the criteria of the ordinance proposal. And we believe here we presented evidence last time that it's neither the largest nor the smallest. It's still under 2,000 square feet, same footprint. The board can certainly find that this is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure.
All right, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the presentation. The next part of the public hearing is any comments or input or questions from anybody in the audience? Either for or against, or just asking questions or whatever. Anybody have anything they would like to say? Seeing no one. I don't think we're still doing online. So we'll close public input and we will go to questions from the board. Who would like to begin?
I have a question. No questions. I have one minor. I see in the rendering the tree is remaining. We didn't really talk about the tree and the sidewalk. I know that that's the recommendation to have the sidewalk in the section that's missing there. See, is there an intent to try to save the tree or not?
We're going to have to work with the tree warden on that. And it also depends on whether or not this qualifies for the requirement that this tree and sidewalk ordinance come into effect. So you'll include that condition. And if it is triggered, then they'll work with the tree warden and the DPW.
Okay, no other questions, John? Okay. So that's it for questions from the board. Now we go into deliberations. And please indicate, whether this meets or does not meet our two-part test. Who would like to begin?
I can begin. First I want to thank the applicant. I'm sorry that we had to do it 2 nights, but you got a better result. The window improvements, they don't affect the volume of the building. They do quality of the building. It's perfect. I just wanted to clarify. I think Attorney Mead left out some words when she was quoting the ordinance. It says that we have 2 findings we have to make. No addition of a new nonconformity, we can make that. But the other is that the proposed change will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood pre-existing nonconforming structure or use. The Board of Appeals may consider, among other factors, the size, scale, massing, volume, and location of the structure extension. So I just want to make clear that phrase, among other relevant factors, are significant. But on balance, I think it's standard, not substantially more detrimental as proposed tonight, compared to the existing structure in the lot, compared to other structures and lots in the neighborhood, and reasonable alternatives to the proposal, including alternatives that may require planning board under section 6C.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman. Who else would like to chime in here? Either,
I would just say I agree with Mr. I think that this project is much improved since our last meeting, and I think that it passed the two-part test, in my opinion, and I can vote.
okay, all right.
Also agree. Board member colleagues here, and I think it's a much better project today than it was 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. And yeah, I will chime in as well. I also agree that I can support this. It's not only better than last week's, it's better than the buildings that are currently there. Well done. So with that, we need a motion to approve.
I make the motion to approve. With the, oh yeah, with the proposed special condition, that the applicant shall place existing sidewalk panels where necessary from specifications provided by Department of Services. Should the existing tree need to be removed as part of work, said tree shall be replaced and so forth. Shall be completed prior to an occupancy permit in extenuating circumstances, limited to seasonal constraints and alternative deadline. Submitted to and approved at sole and reasonable discretion.
Okay,
So with that,
you moved it with that. All right, is there a second? It's been moved and seconded, and I assume the applicant, he read it out of the second procedure. All right, so now we will vote. Mr. Delisle? Yes. Mr. Iron?
Yes.
I vote yes, it is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next application is 26 Oakland Street. This is another continuation, special permit. Second floor above portion of the existing structure extending the non-conforming front yard setback and demolish two existing porches and reconstruct, extending the existing front yard. So, you have the floor.
Thank you. That'd be good.
We had a few issues to clear with the windows and the stair off the porch. Do you want me to do the entire presentation again, or should we just focus on the window?
I think you can focus in on the changes.
Okay, let's see, right there. On the right-hand side is the existing front elevation of Oakland Street. And we're keeping the porches, we're not touching the porches. The side porch has the stair on the left-hand side, and the only change are the windows, where we're switching out all the windows, removing and replacing same size windows with a 2/1 window pattern. And we're switching out one window on the back of the left-hand side porch. It'll be in the kitchen. It needs to be a little bit smaller so that it clears the kitchen counter. Otherwise, the exterior will be restored, repainted, and new windows, new trim, clean up the trim. And we also are adding an apron on the right hand, the main porch. Because right now it's open, exposed underneath, and so we are enclosing the porch on the right hand side. Next. And the right side elevation, you can see the apron that is added on the right-hand porch. We have added a window from the entry hall looking into the porch. And, you can see the addition on, above the existing single level bump out. That is our proposed bedroom addition. The roof steps down, so it really breaks up the massing of the roof, but otherwise we're continuing the same clapboard siding, the same trim dimensions. And Historic would like us to add a trim board right there, yeah, to break up the massing of the wall, that particular wall. We closed in, there's a basement entry, stairs right behind the porch. We are removing that and we're just going to fill that in. It's on the site plan. Next slide. Okay, so the rear elevation, the existing is on the right. You can see where you have that one-story projection and, half of the roof deck that was constructed. And that'll be removed, and we are adding 199 square feet for an extra bedroom and a bathroom, master bathroom. And we're basically repeating the same trim patterns, the heavy crown moldings, cornice moldings, same returns on the eaves, and we're using the 2/1 window pattern and using the clapboard siding as well for the addition. And then there's a small 50 square foot mudroom addition right next. That would be off the kitchen and off the driveway. Next slide. And this is the left-hand side elevation. You can see the porch, the historic porch, and the steps are leading towards towards Oakland Street. And then that porch will also have an apron. And we have removed a window that was originally on the porch, facing the porch, just because it doesn't work with the arrangement of the furniture. There's absolutely no way to organize the furniture without removing that window. And that would be the place for the television. So at the last meeting, the window was straddling the post. And so this is what the owner would like to propose in this area. And then you can see the mudroom bump out and the second floor addition over the existing single story portion of the building. Next slide. So it would be, we're proposing the continuation of a pre-existing non-conforming front yard setback, and we do not consider it detrimental to the neighborhood as we consider an aesthetic improvement. And it'll increase the property values in the neighborhood. The second floor addition is in keeping with the scale and the massing of the existing home, blends with the general neighborhood context. Aesthetically, it's in keeping with and enhances the historical style of the house. And we do have letters from the neighbors that support the project. Tony, anything to add? Our contractor.
Is that your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. Now it's time for anybody in the public who would like to make a comment or ask a question. We have a lot of folks here tonight. Anybody who would like to say anything? All right, we'll close public comment and we'll go to questions from the board. Who would like to begin? All right.
I think generally the plans look like they're more coordinated than last time and the intent is clear. window patterns make sense and removing that one window under the porch. I think is satisfying. We talked about last time. Now seeing the addition of the trim board on the right side elevation, it just really makes it stand out that the windows don't align in the new addition there. It looks like that upper floor window could slide over. It's just inside that bedroom. Would you be willing to align those windows? Just
I believe so. Take a look at,
it's a street facing side. Building.
okay, so slide the double window over. Okay,
One below. Otherwise, I don't know.
okay.
I have one question. When you say that TV has to go on that wall where you're removing, the window, so it's a mounted television?
Um. I don't think I have a question. I appreciate the improvements. So that gets us to deliberation. Who would like to begin deliberation?
Here we have, new non-conformities. So this is the second. Whether this is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think the answer here is it's not. Based on the two nights of hearings we have, this. But it has come back after we asked for some. And I think this is for what currently is. Maybe not an upgrade, but certainly giving it a continued life or a second life. New family. Appreciate it. So I.
Who else would like to comment? Who would like to go next?
Go next. I concur. And I think that there's sustainable improvements. And consistency. I don't think that there's anything here that's another or sort of detriments.
Starter?
I don't know, no comments.
Yeah, and my comment is, I concur with what my colleagues are saying. And, this house right in the corner there, glad you wound up keeping it enhancing the porch, because it really is a very important part of the character of the area. Anyway, so now we're looking for a motion.
The staff report include anything about this? Sorry.
No.
Not on this one.
On this one, no.
Motion to approve on condition that the Jackson Street upper story window be shifted to the left to align lower story. As described.
Perhaps you want to say upper right into the back, because there's three upper stories.
In the addition,
In the addition or something.
Okay, that the upper story window in the rear addition facing Jackson Street be aligned with the lower story window in the rear addition facing Jackson. And with that, we need to approve.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. Now we will vote. Mr. Delisle?
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yeah.
I will vote yes as well, so it's approved. I guess I just have a question, which is, how is this documented now that the plan here is a little different? They just,
Generally speaking, if there's anything that's been modified. This is reflected, we try to codify that in the decision itself, and that's essentially, the zoning administrator when the building is looking for consistency with the decision and
we'll just use this plan that notate that window will go. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that gets us to our last hearing of the evening. This is the one for 181 High Street, which is special permit for non-conformity to construct an addition of all the properties for the non-conforming property connecting the house to the non-conforming garage.
Barr. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Mead, Helen Acosta, 30 Green Street, Newburyport, on behalf of Nancy Wilton, who is the owner of the property. And with me this evening is Scott Brown, who is the architect. You go to the next slide. So Nancy proposes to construct an addition, a one-story addition in the rear of the existing home between the back of the home and the barn, the freestanding barn. The addition will connect both structures. We have first floor bedroom, bathroom, laundry, as well as a mudroom. Nancy has owned her home since 1994, raised her family there. At this point, a member of the household is increasingly difficult with stairs and needs a first floor. The property, if you go to the next slide, is in the HRSB district. And it's a single family home with a detached barn, as I said. It's 30,760 square feet. We don't deal with properties this size very often. It does have non-conforming frontage at 65.5 feet where 75 feet is required. The front yard setback is required to be 30 and it's 27.3. The right side setback is required to be 20 and it's 2.6. And the left side setback, and I apologize for the mistake on the slide, is 15.9 where it's required to be 20. We are only talking about the right side setback here. Otherwise, no other non-conformities are. So if you go to the next slide, please, Andy. So here's a picture of moving west on High Street. And this is actually a really good view. So you see the barn in the back, then you see the existing addition on the back of the house. You are not going to be able to see this addition from this view, or frankly, about any view on High Street, because it's back behind that other addition connected to the barn, and it's just the way the angles are on the property. Next slide, please. And here you get this a little closer to the front of the house. Next slide. And this is directly across the street from 182. Next slide, please. And then if you look at this angle, and I might say we do have an email of support from the neighbor immediately at 183. So again, this is going to be even hard to see from this angle, but it will be in that little bit of a gap between the barn and the back of the house. And the next slide, please. And then, of course, this is a little bit further away on the northern side of High Street. Next slide. So, as I said, Nancy proposes to construct a single-story addition on the rear of the home, extend the right side non-conforming setback further to the rear by about 21.9 feet, but not to the same extent as the 2.6. So that very front section is at 2.6, but the addition will be at 6.4, the front part of the addition, and as it moves back, it's at 6.7. And by the time you get to the garage is 7.5. The house doesn't sit square with that right side lot line. So that's why it moves away from the right side lot line as you go up back. Next slide, please. And this is how you can see that difference. So on the left-hand side is the entire lot, right? It's very deep. The rear lot line is over 300 feet away from the rear of that. On the right-hand side of this plan, you can actually see, obviously, the difference. You see that bay window on the right-hand side that goes out to the 2.6. And then you can see where the addition, proposed addition, is at the 6.4 on the 6.4 at the beginning, and then 6.7 as it curves down there, and then the barn is 7.5 feet away and then it moves further. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Scott to go over the architecture.
Thank you, Attorney Mead. Next slide, please. So this project, originally started out trying to sort of address some accessibility issues for a member of the household. And, we first started looking at putting an elevator into the house, but couldn't do it in a way that did not impact the historic interior detail of this sort of classic Italian-made home. So we pivoted, and what we ended up with here is a proposal that has a first floor addition that houses a small first floor bedroom, bathroom, and laundry area, and also at the same time addresses some minor functional aspects, functional defects with the back of the house. Back of the house currently does not have an identified entrance, so that is one of the things that we're fixing. This is a single-story addition. It does have a low slope roof. The height of it is about 13 feet 8 inches. The low slope roof does help to keep the height of this down, but it is also somewhat necessary, as you'll see on the next slide, because this roof interfaces with an existing single-story addition and also has on this elevation at the top, this is our proposed elevation. It is from the driveway side. And like Attorney Mead said, this is basically not visible from the public way. There's essentially, there's about slightly less than 22 feet between the barn and the house. This elevation, we have introduced a jog in it to break up the length. Not that it's that long, but this does allow us to sort of have a very symmetrical kind of entrance configuration with kind of a classic Italian portico with windows on either side. That jog also allows us to intersect the garage in a way that this addition is sort of set back from the front face of that garage, making that intersection a clean intersection. Next slide, please. So to the right side elevation, as you would see it from immediate and really only a butter. You can begin to see in that back right existing house where we have those sort of 6/6 double hung windows. That's the existing single story addition with a low slope roof, and that's what one of our challenges is to actually interface with that. So we do have also proposing a low slope roof. And so like the opposite side, we're also introducing a jog on this side as well. The house doesn't necessarily line up well with the barn. So that jog also allows us to sort of intersect that barn in a very clean fashion. Next slide, please. So the elevations off to the left, these are the front, basically existing and proposed elevation of the front of the house, not proposing any work there. And you certainly won't see the addition from this vantage point. And on the right side, the elevations back of the house, as you would see with the back to the barn. And on the top there, that's a proposed elevation. You can see sort of that white area. That's sort of like a cut through of this addition. You can start to see some of the challenges we had in terms of roof lines and trying to sort of keep the impact this addition to a minimum and not trying to sort of alter any of the historic windows on the second floor. And finally, next slide, please. Oh, yes, there isn't any. So without Attorney Mead, thank you.
So as Scott indicated, where the addition is going to go, if we look at the criteria, there are no new non-conformities being created. Next is that whether or not the proposal is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure, taking into consideration among other factors, the size, scale, massing, volume, and location of the proposed structure. So first, the property is bounded on the left by a portion of the city's rail trail system. So there's no abutters to the left. The rail lot line is 332 feet away from the rear of the barn, so really no abutters in the back. And while the front setback is non-conforming, we're not impacting that at all or making any changes to the front of the house. As to the right side, the extension is not as close to the existing lot line as the existing non-conformity, and in fact, steps away, as I indicated, from 6.4 to 6.7. The proposed addition is 1 story, and while it would be filling in the area between the barn and the home, it is significantly shorter than both structures and is therefore subordinate. Importantly, it's frankly not going to be visible from any public view. It's difficult to see the existing barn from High Street or the sidewalk along High Street, given how tucked in behind the home it is. The proposed addition will be less visible, if at all visible, given its location, as I indicated on the earlier. And similarly, it will not be visible from the public rail trail, essentially because that rail trail goes down in topography there and then comes up when it's past the addition and in front of the house. So it won't even be visible from the rail trail. And then, as I indicated earlier, the most impacted property is the property on the right, and they submitted a email of support related to this project. So we think that's important too. If you go to the next slide, I also wanted to just show the area. So we're outlined in blue in the bottom and the middle of the project there. And you can see actually it's not unusual for some of these homes along High Street to have longer, more narrow connections in the back. So if you go two properties down on the same side of the street, you'll see there's that longer L, but even further down, you see those two other properties that have the longer L in the back as well for additional living space. Similarly, across the street at 182, there's actually an addition on the back of that house that then connects to that carriage house in the back as well. So it's not an unusual configuration. But I think this view is also important because you can see how tucked into the middle of this property this addition will be between these two buildings and really won't be visible by any stretch of the imagination from High Street. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to show some of the other photos in the neighborhood as you request typically. So here's the property 183, and then we're just going to go to High Street a little bit more. And there's 185 High Street that has that little L in the back. And then next slide, please. There's 187 High Street and 189, and that's the one with the larger L's in the back. 189, that's actually a multi. On the other side, we have 186 to 188, also multifamily. Next slide. And there's 184 High Street. Next slide. And here is 182, the one I described earlier that does have that connection all the way to the back carriage house. Next slide. And then here again is the overview of High Street, and we have the letters for it from 183 High Street. So with that, we would request the board issue a special permit to allow the construction of the addition.
Okay, thank you. So we open up for any public comments, but I don't see anybody. So questions from the board? Who would like to begin? Anybody have any questions? Yes, Mr. Harding.
I don't know that this came up in the presentation. It looks like you're enclosing a door on the driveway side.
I'm going to go back to Scott.
Oh, yeah, I missed that detail. So, this at one time was a dentist's office, and so the remnants of that is still there. So that door in the lower right is being removed in lieu of a window. And the other thing that we're doing in that area is an existing bulkhead in the back of this house that's going to be impacted addition. So we're also proposing to move the bulkhead to this location. So we're hoping to the old windows. This house has all of the windows, and they're up. Hoping to put a window in that sort of matches those, you know, it's important that we didn't.
Yeah, just a question, really. Curiosity. With the flat roof, are you worried about, you know, load and stuff like that with blowing and, you know, on those narrow property, it really blows through. There's a lot of drifting.
Yeah, from an engineering standpoint, it's just something you need to deal with here. So this is going to be really upsized. Again, it's going to be configured so that it'll be draining, you know, drain towards the driveway.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Any plans to make that a by future? The petition?
No, we haven't. Impact.
Anybody else? My only comment is there's a lot of houses going New England that have big house, little house. Oh, that's not mine. I have no question. So we will close questions and we'll go to deliberation. Remember, we have the classic two-part here. No taker to hear.
Okay, well, going through the text, this is a single family residential structure. There will be no addition of a new non-conformity, based on what I heard. So that's that. As to whether the proposed change will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming structure or use. Again, there's various factors you can look at, including size, scale, massing, location. That has to be compared to the, if we do that, existing structure or not. There's lots of neighborhood reasonable alternatives. In my view, the presentation showed convincingly that for the most part, the change isn't even going to be visible. There's one exception, and it's sensibly designed to keep it as a one-story addition to do that. People who are down see it. And the one exception is observed changing a door, you know, at the north southeast corner, it's the corner closest to High Street. And in my view, it is not substantially more detrimental change. You know, as we've seen from recent cases, fenestration does disable things. And this is the kind of change that is consistent, respecting the pattern neighborhood in this house. So changing it from a door to a window, to me, is not substantially more detrimental. No, that would be visible. So on balance, I support the application.
Thank you. The guys?
I had a chance to walk by the property yesterday, just to see if I could see where this would go, and maybe from the rail trail you might be able to see the corner sign. In a situation like that, you would think that maybe someone would build met them, but they've done a nice job to tie in, take care for the details all the way through connecting this. I think it'll be a nice addition. But I'm pretty sure that you can see the details of the new window intended to look like in support of this, as long as that window tries to mimic all of the existing details of the design. It's a very visible window. So, I think that's one concern.
You know what?
I was concur. Yes, they do.
Yeah, and I also concur. The windows are special. I mean, I've seen a lot of houses, there's very few that are 3 over 3 long trees here. I'm glad to see I suspect that this door may not have been there. The another 3 over 3 window. Anyway, so I can support. So now we need a motion. I assume this is not triggered. Which in a simple motion would like to make.
I like the motion to approve the special permit for for.
It's been moved to the second, Mr. Harding. All right, we'll now vote. What?
Yes.
Mr. Harding?
Yes.
Mr. Harding? Yes. And I vote yes. Affirmative, it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that's the end of our hearings. We now have a little bit of business. There is the approval of the minutes of our March 10th meeting. And if there are no other changes, does somebody have a motion?
Got a motion to approve the minutes.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Yeah. All right, that gets us down to update from the chair or the planning director. Do you have anything, Andy, you'd like to share?
If it's right with you, just take me. We got time.
Yeah, it's 5 of 8.
You don't have to talk.
Appreciate
Well, I mean, I'm here for a lot of meetings, so, but, just briefly, it's certainly worth, I think, noting for this board. I know, I was having a quick exchange with Ken earlier, but I know that, zoning boards of appeal don't necessarily always, in my experience, comment on directly on zoning amendments. But this board is actually going to be dealing with a lot of, those provisions days. So, whether or not you want to chime in on it or not, and we thought it was worth noting that there are a couple of comments on some over touching zoning, some over touching demolition delay. So I thought maybe just speaking of them briefly, there's going to be a public hearing on the zoning ones on April 15th, so it's Wednesday. Those will be the zoning amendments. The demolition delay amendment is not going to be, or it's not part of that hearing. The planning board may just decide to chime in on that one, but it's not, part of the required hearing. So, sorry, with you, I'll just note of each of those, and then if there's other questions or, the first one, I think I just go by the numbers really. So ordinance number 217. The first one is the demolition delay. Really effectively what's proposed here, and I'll defer to the sponsors and any changes that are being made in the council committee. But in essence, the proposal here initially was to change it from 75 years to 50 years. And as I understand it, that will be brought back to our committee, I think, for this going into the committee meeting, going in another week or so. I think that's going to be circling back to look at that particular detail. And there may also be an adjustment here to the term length of the delay itself. So initially a 36 month, but that may be reduced sort of the middle ground of 24 month time frame. So again, lengthening the delay, giving more insight, considering options. Or in some cases, go back to the historic commission and propose plans that might be more acceptable to get a release from that delay.
Did you say it was lengthening the delay or?
It was the initial proposal was from 1 year to 3.
Oh, okay.
And then, but it's being adjusted, I think, based on, some feedback from staff.
Thank you.
So that's the first amendment. I think relatively straightforward, I guess, in terms of the tweaks that are being made. It's a minor clarification here, but it makes sense for both building commissioners and administrators. 218, there's 2 of these are actually related to each other, but I'm just going by. So, number 218 is the zoning. This one is dealing with an issue that's come up recently, very strong interest in affordable housing. So we're using different tools to do that. In this case, the idea is looking at some, so-called mansionization of larger homes, some of which this board has seen. It's particularly in some of the western neighborhoods, sort of suburban sprawl, perhaps superimposed years ago with zoning, and so some debate there. We've seen about you know, lot sizes, houses, size of houses and so forth. And so where this board has actually seen some expansions proposed, the language here essentially being proposed is to insert some additional guidance and criteria for the CBA to look at when looking at these projects. And so if the board is essentially looking to preserve these starter homes, you know, for city council guidance, it may also consider whether it's a significantly large one or one that's converting from a two-family or multifamily to a single family, that might actually harm the ability, you know, the city to retain some of those starter or smaller units that are in need. And the other piece that's added in here is just a little more emphasis on the aesthetics, community character, and aesthetics aspect of the board review. So typically they're visible in the public way. So this is essentially, I think there's a good case to make that the case law has already given some ground for the board here, but I think it's the council's basically saying we want more explicit in the ordinance, and we look forward to consider these factors when considering substantial expansion. Then 220, this one is just the downtown overlay district. I don't think that this board might really the planning board to see the downtown overlay district area, but in this case, there was a question that came up related to Center Street, and there was some debate there in that case about the structure might be listed as minor contributing on the inventory reports we have. Essentially, is that a subcategory of contributing, or is it a totally separate category from contributing? So our inventory has contributing, intrusion structures, and then this minor contributing category. Because the ordinance puts the quotation marks around contributory, some debate and concern there about these minor contributing structures. The proposal here in the amendment is essentially to make it clear that if you're either contributing or not minor contributing, which in this case is not intrusion, then you classify something that is triggered by the section of the ordinance, the demolition or something. So in essence, this is just making it clear that any structures within the downtown overlay district that are listed on that form as minor contributing will qualify as contributory. Again, you know, scan with that, I think. And then, sorry, 221, this is the one that goes with the 218, the occupancies and expansions that you might see. This one is, I don't know that they're sync with each other, but there's these kind of perhaps work together, and there's some notion that some tools like this may be beneficial for this board in harmony. So one is, in this case, is putting aside the details. There's a introduction of floor area ratio to some of the bench requirements to give some criteria for this portion of the structure that in square footage that might be allowed. And then there is in the table you see that floor area ratio being added in there. In this case, we see the R2, R3, and D3. And then the other thing that we see adjusted here is height allowance, a smaller height allowance in those districts here, but 35 feet to 25 feet. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Is it oh, you know what it is? Sorry. I just realized because you have the yeah, so give the other wireless. Sorry. I just realized, I apologize. I realized I was projecting here on Zoom. I didn't realize, well, because I didn't have a projector, she did, that you wouldn't be able to see in the room here, so I apologize. Anyway,
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I could. So on the last one you just mentioned, 221.
yeah,
FAR would be, I could see it. They'll, the FAR would be imposed for all R2 and R3 districts?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether it's Joppa or, yeah, correct.
yeah, as proposed right now, obviously, depending on whether that goes, if there's any adjustments, I don't know, but that's the amendment right now.
I look back, I've been going back and forth with Stephanie a little bit on this stuff. And I looked at some of the ones we dealt with this year, like the 2 on Erie, the one on Harding, the one on Jefferson. All 4 of them would have gone down with 25%.
Because they would have needed a variance.
Because they would have needed variance, yes. So all 4 of them would have been gone from a special permit to a variance. The 25 is very restricted. I don't know if they've done the math.
Yeah.
Is that the same, is it on Long Island?
What is it on Plum Island?
The 25?
It's 25, but they've actually defined it a little differently. Plum Island, we're actually counting ADU stand up in, and their FAR definition is not identical. So I think they have a little work to do.
Sorry, I thought this was. But these are the numbers in the table there. So again, I had suggested the council was first initiating some discussion about some of these amendments. Some of this is new coming into this last couple of meeting packet and going forward. Some of it is from a prior council meeting that was introduced. So these things are kind of converging, being reviewed simultaneously. I suggested it might be beneficial also to have some prior discussion. I'll see what tools, in this case, the zoning, tools or general ordinance tools might be helpful with, effectuate certain changes. And so we might also see some evolving discussion there. Provisions in zoning or the tools, to use there. But these are, together, I think primarily there's an interest in whether or not keeping affordable housing or.
So just for example, in R3, based on the floor area ratio, we build a 2,000 square foot house. Period. That's the end of this.
Yeah, I mean, again, you could always come to this board for relief, but again, then you have.
So. The minimum lot.
Right, so the lot is bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the south end.
Right, that's 8,000 square foot lot, you're in 2,000. Yeah, in a lot of lots in Newburyport, closer to downtown.
Dude, small.
Yeah.
That's why I asked whether there's any differentiation by neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Turkey Hill, of course, was developed.
Yeah, there was some conversation, at least initially, with some of the sponsors, and again, not for them about the presentation and what they're trying to achieve, but there was some conversation about particular interest in the western end of the city, and it's weird to figure out where the districts fall, make all different words in areas of the city, but in this case, it was a particular interest because there were councils in that area, and in some cases, what they were seeing happens larger homes. And so I feel the focus might be there. There was also the introduction of, should we have sub-districts within, or differentiation between some of these neighborhoods to allow a little bit more precision, if you will.
Here's a question. So for like open space and lot coverage, those are aggregates, right? So if I want to build a 2,000 square foot house, 8,000 square foot lot in R3, and then I want to build a accessory dwelling unit, I can't.
Well, again, unless you want to come for relief, it's part of your overall calculation, right? So yeah.
The Americans.
Well, isn't this making it more restrictive? To make these things so you can do this stuff.
Well,
So this isn't about ADUs, this is about manchinization.
No, I know, but if you have a house that's close to the farm and you want to build an ADU in your.
No, I got it. Yeah. Just that. You're like, again, a hypothetical 8,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
A 2,000 square foot house, there wouldn't be anything left over for an ADU, right?
correct. And so there's this, like any other zoning, there's sort of the pros and cons, and the effect on this lot and that lot, whether this neighborhood is representative of how it's going to be captured versus another neighborhood might be affected differently in some cases. Because some areas of the city are so different, the lots are so different from each other. It's a lot harder to predict, but in some of these lots on the western side, they're a little more regular, right? They're giant subdivisions happening at once. So you can kind of apply that logic and say, all right, here's what might happen if someone's doing either an ADU or, in this case, I think my understanding from the sponsors, they were primarily focused on where a single family absent an ADU, a single family home itself is being increased in size and the proportion is perceived as out of scale for the neighborhood and, taking away from the houses. Right. So that, and also, to some degree, I guess, what you've all debated here, which is when you have a lot that's like substandard to start, is that worse than standard lot, is that they're doing the same massing.
My opinion is that I'm glad they're looking at this because I think, we wind up doing it. We wind up saying, how many square feet is this going to be? How big is it relative to the size? I think they need to do a lot more. What works and what doesn't, what's too excessive or whatever. But I also, Jared once said we have a strong board here. I think we do have a strong board. Doesn't mean there'll be a strong board here 4 years from now. No, I think we're pretty good at working through these massing issues, but I think having some of this stuff, if you will, I think, and I also think the height is 35 feet, and a lot of it is to me just too high for most of these neighborhoods. We never let even go back. So I'm glad to see them looking at it. They don't give up when they discovered like the entire south end is way above a 25%.
Yeah. Well, can we stick on that one, but we'll come back to this one.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the advantage of the way that, the rigmarole we go through for a non-conforming structure is it specifically says you should look how it relates to the lot. So whoever wrote that in the 70s, they at least realized,
right.
sometime in the south end, adding 1,000 square feet is maybe very different than adding it to the hill. Obviously what we're telling you is in our experience, some of us are comfortable with not having a differentiation for all R2 and R3.
Yeah.
That's all, and so probably needs work for you. And you may, someone has to go through and we had.
It goes back to the district plates, you're probably right.
Yeah, the district plates.
Yeah.
Did send the district plate, a sample one to Mary July. She asked me, I didn't know this was coming. But, it was before Christmas. So I know she knows about it.
Yeah, and I think they've done, again, to my understanding, they've done a little bit of playing around that sort of analysis themselves. Hasn't necessarily been done by the Office of Planning and Development, right? And all that. But they've done some of their own, and as they were thinking this was ready for prime time, sort of bring in for sponsorship.
Okay.
We haven't been able to sort of through the entire discussion of, what's our analysis for some of this
All right.
versus, and I think, some of you and others may have thoughts on, is there a desire to have a differentiation or to even have a differentiation between like R1, in R1, some areas are capturing some object, like, for instance. So,
Yeah.
whether the front setbacks, should be some variation there for some reason, but it's all open.
Okay.
Question.
All right. And the only other thing I wanted to say is, front yard it's always been, it's not necessarily wrong to, especially in the south end. have big farms.
Yeah.
So I, totally get it, shortening the distance. But I just want to flag that, there's a provision in our code about, it says new construction, front yard is actually the average of the adjacent buildings. A lot of cities have. It isn't written the way it is in other cities, because it just says new construction, and it doesn't say alterations.
Yeah.
So oftentimes.
Yeah.
The applicants come in here and they think that they have to comply with the, 20 feet.
Right.
And if it were like Somerville.
Right.
It wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's the streetscape.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we do findings, we do look at, well, what's the actual pattern? Pay that much attention to it. You say, well, what is it on the street? Like we did that on Erie.
Yeah.
So in dealing with this, changing the front yard requirements, don't forget that section. Maybe you want to tweak that section.
Yeah, I agree. There was also, it came up in a brief conversation in the office, because we think about application, we talk regularly about, everything, but also, for instance, the example of like, all right, now if something becomes, if it's an existing structure, setback is reduced, the front setback is reduced, right? So you can do some sort of smaller, addition in between that space essentially, and does that mean we're going to get any awkward additions being proposed to utilize that space, And so if that's allowed as of right, is that something that like, does that result in anything unusual? And again, you're sort of playing for the option here.
Yeah, well, okay, so that reminds me, like when we did the decon, we didn't say that you couldn't remove the front wall. We didn't say that.
Yeah.
Because we thought, well, that's not.
Yeah.
Well, that maybe now you need to worry about it. If you're changing the setback, you're gonna get weirdo applications where it was like, oh, I gotta chop off build a new front of my 1850 house and push something out into the yard.
It's something to consider,
Yeah, so
It just was a blank slate, I would be, like, to me, it would be a lot more like, or, I'm not opposed, I'm not saying opposed, but like, if it was a blank slate, it's so much easier for me to make the case of, these are historic neighborhoods, we have, structures that are built closer to the sidewalk, establishing, a neighborhood, to me, starting with that versus a 25-foot arbitrary suburban sprawl setback, like, makes sense, but when you apply it in an existing neighborhood, you have to play out how does it get modified sequentially by individual properties as opposed to the entire thing being done at once. So this doesn't come, a tool like this doesn't work quite as well as when you're starting to like.
Yeah, because you're right, you have to look over time. Like over 100 years, will everyone's house get 10 feet closer to the street? Is that what you want?
With with your sort of, suggestion to Andy that he look at that other section or bring that,
Front yard.
bring that to the attention of the city council, would that just just that modification without the modification to the front yard, would that be enough to, sort of get things moving into that?
To some degree, but I guess like, it depends on who you're talking to and which, sponsor and others, but like, some of them might be thinking there's a street where none of the houses actually, they're all set back, right? But they might want to change that character again. I don't know, in terms of like sense of what they want the neighborhood to be, what they've seen, what they like, they don't.
Well, you can also do minimums. You can say,
Right.
reach or,
Right,
but never in any case less than. You can, there's all kinds of ways to slice and
Yeah.
dice it.
Yeah.
Um,
the difficulty with something like this is like, again, like trying to get community-wide or neighborhood impact, input on an giant area. Just, again, we should be doing it based on logical land use, but to try to get neighborhood input too, a lot of people feel like collectively, we don't quite have that just yet, right? We have some sense of it through the work council, but we don't know, we haven't done a public hearing yet to see how people feel about these.
And it is gonna be different.
And so that, so there might be some, on the way, maybe there's a suggestion that there's parsing, so that some areas, yes.
Is there any other way we can help you or written comments or just?
I mean, I guess the thought is just, again, recognize that you're going to be dealing with these provisions one way or the other. Whether you see them as useful tools or you see them as potentially having, things you've like worked out. Whether you want to come in as individuals or even as a board, because you'd be dealing with these provisions, it might be, and again, we're helping where we can with the sponsors with the council process, but like, if there's language changes that you think are not clear enough, in the ordinance, right, or dimensions that you don't think make sense, or something you feel like is missing,
Well, you haven't, so the hearing's on April 15th, so you want us to.
well, I know, also the city council was planning to meet, a week before.
What is the hearing? Is that a planning board hearing?
It's a joint, what the ordinance calls here is the joint public hearing. Where
It's not our.
No, yeah, so I would note that, in April.
But, we're down 3 guys tonight.
Yeah, we can send out another update. Well, I can send out an update. That was given the last packet, since last night I haven't sent out an email, but I can follow that with it like I did with the prior one, basically.
It's not, it's next week. It's
Next week,
Yeah.
the next week's,
Yeah.
So the city council planning development committee is going to be meeting on Tuesday, the 7th of April, to talk about these initially, on their own, these amendments. And then again, for the zoning changes, at least the planning board will be meeting with them.
There's nothing improper about us emailing with Rob and Greg and Larry on this, because it's something.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna have legal counsel on that. I took the question of like whether, that like get into an area, only like if you're debating a zoning change, all you be emailing me or should it?
No, I just want to give him a heads up, because we got a big calendar on the 14th.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I mean, I guess I'm not gonna play legal counsel, but I would, steer your way if you can with deliberation about the substance of it so much, but like definitely, I was actually planning on sitting on it anyway, but to push it out and basically say you should pay attention to this, maybe we should talk about it in a meeting or whatnot. I have no objection to that exchange myself. I just, you may want to save some of that deliberation for here. And then if you're communicating it, to others, maybe it's as a body or maybe it's individual.
There's only one meeting between now and 15, and it's the one we have 5 topics.
We're just not gonna have time. So.
Yeah. I would say whatever works. It was practically that.
Probably what's gonna happen is we'll have to do individual comments.
And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. That's better than nothing. I mean, to me, we're the people
Yeah.
who struggle with these issues. If I was the city council, I'd like our input.
Yeah, I think another thing, I mean, you guys know, but I think I'll put it in a comment on this, Again, I'm not against FARs. Most cities do have, it. We're a little weird that we don't have it. But, you know, the current is pretty fastidious about variances. We don't hand out variances easily.
Yeah.
We take it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
Whereas Boston doesn't. You know, so they need to know that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, a few minutes ago, I did the same notion. I mean, this board is actually pretty good. I think in terms of like looking at the statute of limitation being, you know, conservative about that. This board compared to the other communities that I work at, so, let's say, you know, some cases, you know, treat us, you know, some boards around Massachusetts treat the variance more like it's a special permit. Right? Because that hardship thing, the impression, the difficulty, and they're,
We can tell you, I mean, developers have been for 30 years, they still don't know that there's a difference.
yeah, yeah.
All right, that's enough of that.
Next question on there. So if this gets, implemented, you have existing non-conforming houses that are larger than that, and they want to expand, finishing their basement. Something that would never come before us. So that's not gonna introduce a whole new series of variances to us for people to finish their.
Depending on the property in question, there could be something that is triggered for review here that, you know, or it's treated as a pre-existing non-conformance. That's the basement then to come in.
See, because it won't be a new violation. It's an exacerbation of. See.
Right.
So that was less.
Right, so that would be a special that, whereas if you're introducing a new non-conformance, you're talking about a variance.
So if someone's house is just under that, you know, they want to finish their basement and they're not doing anything visible.
I think they're finishing the basement triggers it, the way
Well,
Jennifer.
Well, it's, it can be, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
She's been saying on Plum Island anyway, she's been saying as long as there's headroom, it counts. Hasn't she?
Well, they have their own definition of floor area for.
Yeah, you have to almost put Plum Island Village something, but yes, you're correct. Yes, they would be
Adding.
potentially coming in for a variance where they would normally be like previously would be.
I got it. Actually, in the south end, it's not that they would trigger a need for variances, it would be a whole bunch of committees.
It's every.
Everybody's.
Everything's not going right.
Nobody's.
Yeah.
Everybody's way over.
So that wouldn't be such a dramatic shift, that it would just be another.
Also doesn't do anything, if they're trying to give us a tool to help. it
Yeah.
doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
There's oftentimes like a trigger for something anyway, so like when it's already before you, it's sort of added less.
Well, what it does is it points back to where people are actually doing new, but no one, we don't have any vacant lots anywhere,
Right.
not even in the Turkey Hill. It's all tear downs. Okay. All right.
So maybe it's all we need then, right? If your tear down is. If the tear down building exceeds the FAR, and you tear it down and build it back up, are you then,
Well, that's the weirdness of Massachusetts.
because then you're back into those
If it's
cases.
a one or a two family house, in
Yeah.
Massachusetts, you can
Yeah,
tear down your house
Yeah.
and build it back.
Yeah.
You can't do that anywhere else that I know, but you can here, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
So say they're in Turkey Hill and they're way over the FAR. They're free to tear that sucker down and build back an exact copy without coming to us. Once they depart anyway,
Right.
the bigger.
but it would be a special permit.
A
not-
special
Right.
permit.
And so if we take our case study of Erie Ave, if those guys, the guy that wanted to supersize, if he comes in and says, I want to rip this down and supersize it, it's still a special permit.
It is. So I guess what happens is this then becomes sort of guidance to us, just like the zoning is a guy,
Yeah.
was a guy. It's like,
Yeah.
Except the guy who supersized was coming from a one story,
Well, right,
which was within the farm. He was then
oh,
going
he would
over
have been within the farm. Okay, all of them.
Well, the ones in the area in the word.
Underneath the farm. Okay.
All right, then maybe this amendment does do with the sponsorship.
Yeah.
It's only gonna require variance for things like Erie Avenue. And that's what Mary and.
But even the one we approved, it's got, like the Massingers, so,
Yeah.
that's still wrong.
Well, if the counselors want a variance for that, they need to know that. It's gonna be.
I don't think they realize the number, the
Yeah.
They kept under different.
You're right, like I share some of the thoughts and concerns of the spectrum, like, you know, the interpret record, which things need a variance from the report or sort of handcuffed, you can't do license. Usable, you know. But a lot of these things are just gonna be special purpose non-conformity, in which case then you go back to this other amendment, you know, where you're also, in some cases, you're.
Yeah, let's talk about this one. 'Cause this one, I saw Rick Taylor's comment letter and I wrote one. And then the sponsors have come back to me, and they're really drilling down, Andy, on what the cases say. So I just sent them the case, I said, just copy the cases.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
you're talking about the ones that were included with the amendment?
Yeah.
Something like that.
yeah,
Okay.
just verbatim, you know, so for example, there was some concern like, this was originally drafted. It says, or from the conversion of two-family or multifamily into one family.
Mhm.
Well, the Bjorkwood case doesn't say that explicitly.
But meaning there's some reservation to include that because of that case.
Well, that's up to the sponsors. I told them, if you know, first of all, I said, we can agree on what the cases say because we can all read.
Right, right.
And you can literally verbatim copy.
Yeah.
What they wrote.
Yeah.
If that's what you want. Then the next question is, do you want to do something more? Because they do have this, they can do different, they can do more.
Yeah.
I thought we just wanted to do York. And that's the way we interpret York. It is one fact.
Yeah.
It's not the way Rick wrote it. It is,
Yeah.
you know, a yes, no.
Yeah.
We take it into account.
Amongst.
Correct. My point was, I mean, there's some disagreement, but it seems to me pretty much anytime you put any money in a house, it's gonna be more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it puts us in a real bind.
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't be able to prove anything.
Yeah.
So that was my, Yorkwood doesn't say that.
Yeah,
It doesn't say-
yeah.
Can't, it just uses the verb limit.
Yeah.
Citywide.
Yeah.
Not every lot.
Yeah.
And then on the aesthetics, you know, I mean, clearly, you know, Attorney Mead also is skipping, you know, some of the language in our entire, that mistake to it. It's just not, I mean, it's like, it's the don't say gay in Newburyport aesthetics. Oh, you can't say the word, you know. It's here, you know, it's real. If they don't want to say it, I'm still gonna.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is I feel like this is just bolstering the existing authority.
I just want to stop, I want to stop this nonsense.
Then you can't talk. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's just not, it's
we-
not true.
I guess in the time that, even in the time that I've been here, like, we advise applicants when they come in, whether it's the planning board, more for the ZBA, because these residential homes, right? But we're always saying to people like, you know, come in, they, you know, they're gonna wanna see the elevations, you're gonna wanna pay attention to the details of those. If we see things that are awkward, I know Jennifer is more frequent maybe than the two of us, but we're always telling people, well, this is for whatever reason, this is looking so awkward, whatever you're doing. We try to walk through what they could do to modify or change it to sort of get, you know, in that realm. But you know, obviously we can't act as the boards, we don't know where things are gonna land, but I would agree that this is a criteria in a community like Newburyport, and I don't think it should necessarily be only for certain neighborhoods. I think in general it should be a criteria.
Yeah. That's like the guy that came in on Merrimack Street, and he had not put enough thought into things. But he recognizes it. He fixed it.
Well, I like the idea of including aesthetics, and it gets back to, I mean, you showed up here, or we showed up here, and we now talk about aesthetics more.
Well, we use the word. I mean, I gotta tell you, you
Well, we
guys.
didn't use to, we didn't use to talk about.
I know, you had to, well, like the example I was gonna give on windows, like, could an applicant come in and say no windows and expect there to be no jurisdiction over that? We're just gonna have a blank wall. We're just gonna have a blank wall. You can't say anything, because it's not massive. That's bullshit. It's not true. There's no zoning board of behavior.
This is just codifying what we're doing, putting the word aesthetics in.
Correct. And I think that it really is silly.
Well, the flip side, I mean, we don't have to go to the rabbit hole tonight, because it'd be too big of a discussion, but like, you know, the question was asking you a little while back too, like, what about additional design standards? And this is, of course, the entire spectrum in the report, right? It's, you know, how much, you know, regulation, how much specification people have, but you could also, depending on the criteria, you could go up with some level of consensus over certain criteria and things that are always sort of taken into account since it's only in the code. Or you can then rely upon, if you don't, can't get a complete agreement on that, or there are too many scenarios you run into, you have the discretionary review of some type, and that aesthetics is taken into account, or something is just thrown out on the streetscape. So, there's different ways of getting from point A to point B.
But the point is, we already have, we're supposed to be comparing it to the existing building.
Mhm.
So that kind of sets the standard.
Agreed.
You know, is that, like, for example, on, Highland, where, Scott originally, I think, was irritated that he had to redo, show us the windows, but the fact is, as weird as the existing building is, the windows were bad. You showed us. They were actually standard and lined up and all that stuff.
Right.
Like all the other buildings on Highland Street. So it's
Right.
completely within our jurisdiction to say,
Yeah.
can you fix the windows? He did.
Yeah, these conversations, dude, like Scott's already like, oh, I need to think about this more
Yeah.
next time before I.
Yeah,
before we-
I mean, yeah, because he's a professional, he does a good job, it's just that we don't, after the drawings leave here, we're not gonna see them.
They don't want to come back.
Yeah, the other thing too, I would say is, I definitely think it depends on the case, like, certainly you could have some debate at some point about where that land is reasonable to expect for aesthetics, and what, certain measures and all that kind of stuff. But that's a particular specific scenario. To me, the baseline question here is clearly it should be a criteria, of some type that the board is reviewing, You could always have that debate with some applicant where, that line is drawn, that's.
So I would encourage anybody to go to the hearing on the 15th. If we have time on the 14th, hopefully we can touch on it for a couple minutes. We'll see. I think that we got three of them now.
So back to the front yard thing, is that really the front yard setback?
Do they use the establishment setback? Is it for the
No,
people?
it's ambiguous in the Newburyport. It says for new construction,
Right.
you take the average of the buildings on your side. I believe that's what it says. But most of them, we don't have new construction. We have construction. So what I've been seeing is people saying, oh, it's a 20 foot.
Exactly.
See,
Yeah.
if you want to do that, that's fine. Needs to be thought through.
Yeah.
But if we say now it's 15 or 10, is it, is it something that could come to pass? People are building up to.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's not-
Well, look how weird that case was on Wall Street.
Yeah.
I mean, the money in Newburyport is such, and the land values are high enough that they will carve out, 4 feet or 3 feet of the building.
In the historic districts though, everybody's within 15 anyway.
Well, right, but that was my question. So in the historic districts, you are going to then be subject to historic? You try to shave more than 25% of the building off? Or is that,
You're still gonna have that change.
what is it? Is it 25?
25%. That will stay, so that's the.
But if you're,
Yeah, but you just said the front. It's only 25%.
Right.
You could be exempt from decot. You could shave off the front of your building and build an addition.
Why can't you do that today? Why can't you do that today?
yeah, so
No, if you're set back 5 feet, right now,
We need a special permit.
and that's right now, the setback 25, 25 to 15, you're only at 5, so I understand how the incentive changes for lopping off the front of your building.
no, you're not lopping, your setback's at 20.
Yeah,
And they're changing it to 15 or 10, so you could build 15 or 10 feet of structure.
within.
On Lund Street, you're right. There's no-
Anywhere in the south end, nobody is within.
Well, not
20
just
feet.
the south
The north end, most of the north end.
street, maybe.
I don't know, well, it's somebody's. We have
It's just of interest.
GIS, we can do some sample.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can do some example, like the replay thing. We can do some analysis. The one thing as a caveat is, depending on the degree of complexity and how much we're doing, some of the parcels in the city are so varied that and basically then you're still having that policy debate, does this represent that district or, and so, there might be some, multiple heads coming together to say, like, where do we draw that line between this neighborhood and that neighborhood, or this, street type and that street type. We might,
Of course.
maybe we need more
But
radiation.
I mean, you gotta draw the line somewhere. That's the city council's job.
Yeah,
And the courts are just gonna say.
Yeah.
Whatever you decide, that's where the line is.
Yeah. yeah, and you can have, you can divide up like R1 into smaller subdivisions or something like that. You know, but to me, I also hesitate sometimes with the idea of like having an enormously large dimensional table, breaking it down into fire, you know.
Sure.
There might be logic behind that, we might want to do it, but there's also, you know, there's within reason, you know, balance of different things that you're doing, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, well, thanks for asking us.
Yeah, and chime in if you have any thoughts.
How about a motion to adjourn? Somebody?
So,
All right, all in favor? No, I'm glad.